So introducing the first week of teaching our dog how to be attentive to us through a social perspective. What we're going to have a look at to start with is, in essence, the absolute basics, and that's going to be looking at the tools that we're going to use. The first tool that we're going to use is called a lunge line. You may think that sounds a bit weird. A lot of people call it a long line. It's actually a lunge line that comes from horse work. And essentially what we're going to use is a 5 metre lead, and that 5 metre lead can be made of pretty much anything really. If you're just going to be doing this as a one-off, I don't suggest you go out and buy yourself a very expensive one, because you're only going to use it really for a very short period of time. You can pick it up from a pet store for a few bucks. You can also get heavier sort of rope that you can put a clip onto, and that would work just as well. Essentially what we want to have is a long line, like I said, about 5 metres long, and it needs to be significantly heavier than the collar that we're going to use, whether that's a martingale or a Slipchain. I prefer to use the metal ones just because of the added acoustics of it, essentially. There's also a certain amount of vibration that travels then along the skin of the dog as the collar changes. But so lunge line, significantly heavier than the collar that we're going to use, 5 metres in length, and it's got to be comfortable going through your hands, okay? So those are the main sort of things that we want to have. I'll just write these down as we're going along. Lunge line, 5 metres. Heavier than collar. This is a pretty important aspect, actually. Please, don't undervalue that. The other thing that we really want to have a look at here is also what sort of a collar you're going to use. My preference for this sort of work is actually to use a Slipchain. Purely because of a few reasons. There's no clips, there's no mechanical parts to it, with the exception of the links that make up the chain itself. So there's less that can go wrong. From a maintenance perspective, that's pretty big. Also, as the chain moves from the running part, it actually makes a good audible sound. There are other videos that I've got on my YouTube channel that you can feel free to have a look at that go into the Slipchain a little bit more detail. But essentially, the Slipchain itself provides a good amount of consistent contact with the dog's neck as we're learning how to deal with each other. And the important aspect of that is not that we're yanking on it. That's not what this is called to be used for. Essentially what we've got here is a slip chain. Chain provides a very, very mechanically sound and robust way of securing our dog in the event that something goes wrong. The reason why I call it a slip and not a choke is if you put it on the wrong way, that's a choke collar. As far as I'm concerned, that's not anything to do with dog training. So that is, again, look up the videos on my YouTube channel. A slip chain, as soon as it constricts, provides that auditory signal which preempts the physical contact, tightening around the dog's neck, and that tightening then provides a secure reference or a much firmer fit, irrespective of the type of dog head that you've got compared to the neck. Some dogs have a very wide neck and narrow head based on their skull shape. Some of them have a very wide skull and very narrow neck, but essentially this will provide a consistent contact and measure of security irrespective of dog breed, dog size, etc. So whilst I don't believe in silver bullets, I think this comes really, really close to being, even though it's quite heavily scrutinised, I think incorrect use choke, doesn't release, slip, slip on, slip off, slip on, slip off. So that's essentially our slip chain. You could use a martingale. There are certain arguments for a martingale collar, which is essentially just a cross between a slip collar and a flat buckle collar. I maintain the use of the slip collars. What we also want to be looking at for this is some sort of a reward item. We'll be using heavily, or we'll be heavily based in social reward systems. So that means your voice, your physical contact with your dog. We will also be using prey items in order to provide a large emotional input to our dogs. These prey items can be food, it can be a toy. Toys that I do prefer to use elicit some sort of prey sequence, so we'll have things like an irregular shaped ball. Think of your Kongs, throw that on the ground, and every time you throw it on the ground, there's a different outcome. It'll bounce left, it'll bounce right, it'll bounce high, whatever. That elicits a chase response, and it is different every time you throw the ball, so the dog never really becomes accustomed to it. Like for, say, a tennis ball, which you just bounce down on the ground, that pops back up again. Again, some dogs will just go nuts over that tennis ball because they're so involved in chase. That's entirely fine. Some other dogs really need to bite down to start with, and a tug toy is really good for that. That's kind of that almost combative sort of bite sequence where the dog is holding on and you're holding on, and together, this is the thing. It's not a competitive situation. It's a collaborative situation. You're both jumping on that deer, jumping on that moose, and you're both going for that moose. So, as opposed to fighting over some sort of a resource, that's kind of the mindset that I'm coming from with the reward sequences. Everything is working together to get to one single goal. So something that elicits a chase response, like a ball, a frisbee, a Kong, or something else that is a little bit more collaborative in respect to a tug toy, something like that. They're really, really good to use. All right, let's have a look at some leash technique work. I'm just going to use this slip chain. If you have a lead, a long lead, which has a loop in it, that's good. What I want you to do, or what I would suggest that you do, better said, is put your thumb through the loop. Okay, so we've got the handle, our thumb is through there, wrap your hands around that loop, and then rest your thumb over the top of your hand. Now, as the dog pulls, you're going to be taking up a lot of that friction with these fingers, okay, and your anchor point is your thumb. I have yet to see a dog that is that strong that they will break your thumb and pull that lead through. It's just simply not going to happen. It's a secure anchoring point for that lead. The next point, if like my longe lead does not have a loop on the end, all we're going to do is simulate that. You're going to get the last couple of inches, okay? So there's our lead. Get the last couple of inches, put my thumb underneath, wrap your fingers around, okay? Lead's going over the top, and it's exactly the same thing, all right? It's super sturdy. Nothing's going to come out of there, all right? Just a word on leads as well. I would prefer to use a flat lead rather than a round one. I find that the surface pressure that you're getting through your hand, that is then wrapping around, regardless of whether you've got a loop or not, you get a much better point of contact there. The next thing I'd like to talk about, okay, is once you've got your lead in your hand, what you'll tend to find a lot of people do is hold their lead and just let their dog drag them around. Okay, this is pretty bad body mechanics on our behalf. What I would like you to do, okay, you've got the lead, find your navel, keep this hand at your belly button as much as you can. Obviously that's not exactly going to happen, the dog's going to pull, but I there have leeway, okay? That leeway allows me to absorb a lot of strain on my shoulder musculature. It allows me to extend and then pull back as I use my biceps, my extensors to hold tight, my bicep and my tricep, to resist that push out and that pull in, my shoulder is going to be taking on a lot of, instead of having that jerk or when I'm out here and everything's coming off the joint, everything's coming out from my musculature now, okay? So that's a very, very important aspect. So as the dog pulls really hard, it's all coming off my muscles, but notice that my upper body isn't moving at all. Whereas if I've got my hand out here, if the dog pulls even further, it's not just my shoulder that pops out, okay? It's also my whole body is then thrown off balance. And that's what we want to avoid. So again, thumb through the handle or thread some lead through, wrap my fingers around, my hand to my belly button, and I've got to keep it there as much as possible. If there's a strong conviction in my dog trying to get away and I need to have that extra support, I'm just going to wrap another hand underneath and just lift up a bit, and I'm going to keep these hands there, and I might have to just kind of absorb some of that pressure. But it's only within the first couple of days. The dog is going to learn very, very quickly of their own accord exactly what's going on and where their idea of a social space actually ends. That's an important aspect. So again, what I want you to do, okay, thumb through the loop, fingers around, thumb secure on top, hand to the belly button. Just buckle those knees a little bit so that you're sinking down a little bit lower, and that'll allow you to take short steps from here to there. If the dog's pulling one way, my arm might come out. Probably should do it going this way. My arm might come out a little bit. I could even take a step in that direction, but I'm braced and I'm sitting nice and low, and the dog then has a much more consistent signal as to how far away they can be from us. Alright, so we've talked about leash technique. What we should also really be talking about, I will harp on it at the moment, is if you are going to use a slip chain, I did kind of allude to it before, there is a right and a wrong way. We've got the running edge, always has to be underneath, so you'll hear this like this perfect puppy thing. Essentially what I want is I want to use gravity, and I've got this this running lead here. Okay, here's my anchor point that goes off towards the lead, and this is the part which then hopefully you'll pick that up in the by the microphone there. Closed. Dogs move too far away. As soon as the dog takes half a step closer to us, that lead relaxes again. Okay. So this application here, if the dog is going to be on my right side, this is how I'm going to have that lead. Now, if I want the dog on the other side, on my left side, like a lot of people do, that's kind of more conventional, is I'm going to have, again, the lead will be draped over the dog's neck and hang underneath. That's the way it works. So as the dog moves away, tightens up, relaxes, tightens up, relaxes. Alright, that's just a quick overview. Again, I've got videos of that on YouTube. Feel free to check it out. What I want to have a look at now is our box drill. We're going to be using that for quite heavily for the first week. So you can go down to a triangle. I prefer to use a box drill because it gives us 4 points and allows us to get a certain amount of consistency in. Essentially what we're going to have is 15 to 20 paces. We'll mark out point A, point B, point C, and point D. Okay, so we've got 4 points that we're going to stop at. We are simply going to walk from one to the next. Alright, once we get to point B, we're going to stop for 30 seconds to a minute. Okay, get your stopwatch, get your iPhone, get whatever you've got, time it, look at the clouds, pretend like you're looking at the grass, pretend like you're occupied, so that we're going to elicit the inquisitive reflex of our dog, so that the dog goes, what's going on over there? I need to go and have a look. For the first couple of days, we're not going to say anything, okay? Once the dog is around, we've waited 30 to 60 seconds. We move over from point B to point C. When we're walking between these 2 points of reference, really what we want to do is walk with a good pace, and we also we are walking from one point to the next. It is up to us to play hard to get, and our dogs will learn to stay socially connected. That's the important part. They're going to stay connected to us, so that as we take off from point A to point B, or point B to C, or C to D, or D to A, what we will find is that our dog will then automatically flip out of whatever emotional context that they're in, and they will have to follow us. Now, if they're really committed to what they're into and they're just being dragged along by us, to start with, that's okay. The dog is going to learn very, very quickly that it doesn't pay to be in a bad emotional frame of mind. It is much better to be in a social frame of mind with what's at the center of that lead, and that will be us. So that puts us at the center point of their orbit, so to speak, and that allows them then to use us as a reference. That's the point of the box drill. Once we get to point C, again, 30 seconds to a minute, whatever you choose, whatever time frame you choose, make it consistent at each point, okay? Once we finish that, C to D. Once we finish that, we go D to A. Now, what I tend to suggest is do a lap of 5 points. So in this particular instance, you go from A to B, B to C, C to D. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, and then D to A to B, for a total of 5 walks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 walks. Once I've done that 5, get that treat out, whether that's food, a tug toy, or the Kong, whatever it is that we're trying to elicit, right? Throw the Kong on the ground, let it chase, do it right at your feet, so that the dog automatically uses you as a source of reference for where that prey object came from. If you're treating, then say yes, give them that treat. But it's from you, and it's within a very specific space of you, okay? So again, everything good comes from you. Everything else gets progressively worse, so to speak, the further away the dog is from you. So the dog learns by their mistakes to use you as a reference point for where the best things happen, and the further away they go, the worse things get. That's kind of a very rough and ready way of explaining it. But that's essentially what we're going to do. So days 1 and 2, what we're after is moving from point A to point B, doing a lap, going through 5 different points, and what we are doing with our dog to start with is absolutely nothing. We don't talk with them, we don't look at them, we don't do anything. Remember, we're playing hard to get. What that does is forces the dog's hand. In order to remain socially connected with us, they have to work for that social connection. And that really is pivotal to the box drill. So day 1, what we want to do is go out and do this. Day 2, we're going to go and do that again. Days 3 and 4 are going to change slightly, but the first 2 days are exactly the same. If you've got any questions, don't hesitate to get in contact with us, and I'll get back to you as quickly as we can. Thank you very much.